It is time now for our State House Insiders to find out what's going on at the State House here in Columbia and elsewhere. Our Republican strategist tonight, Dave Wilson, and our Democrat strategist, Antoine Seawright. All right, guys, let's dive into something that made news earlier this week. A group of solicitors wanting to keep lawmakers who are also lawyers off the Judicial Merit Selection Committee, the people who decides who will be judges in the state of South Carolina. Specifically, they were targeting House Minority Leader Todd Rutherford, saying that he doesn't need to be on that committee as well. What's your take on this, Antoine?
Well, I'll say this. I think the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus issued a statement talking about overreach and how if solicitors wanted to have a say-so in what happens at the State House, then they should run for the State House. And it's been Republicans in the state who, quite frankly, often talk about keeping branches of government separate, no government overreach. I don't know how many or how deep or wide the effort was to amplify this, but I'd be curious to know how many solicitors weighed in, what do they actually want and mean, and quite frankly, trying to change a system that has been implemented in South Carolina for a very long time at this point, because of some sort of anger, frustration, or confusion. I think it's just wasting time.
I disagree with Antoine on this one, and the reason why is this. If you take a look at the Judicial Merit Selection Committee and its makeup, it is predominantly lawyers and lawyer legislators who actually have to then go before the judges that they've elected. That's the biggest issue, JR, that's being faced on this right now, is it seems duplicitous on their part to not only select the judges, but also be appearing before the judges that they selected. And that's why there's a big push right now to get more lawyers off of that selection committee and getting some other folks back onto it.
Dave, my issue is the fact that this was a targeted effort towards one person. If you're going to talk about reform, fine, let's have that conversation. I think is worthy. I think all that's worthy, but don't make it a target play. This seems like a targeted conservative effort targeted towards one person. Representative Rutherford is not the only lawyer legislator in the General Assembly. And so I think that's when you hear people like saying overreach and using words like that, this was specifically targeted towards him, which means somebody has an axe to grind.
Antoine, this issue has been going on and is being discussed and has been for a while. Todd Rutherford, because he is who he is and he is out front and outspoken on issues, I think he has become a lightning rod for this issue. But it is across the board. If you look at the number of lawyer legislators who are on that committee, JR, I think it really needs to have some level of reform.
But Dave, shouldn't it be up to those lawyers to recuse themselves who go before
absolutely
the
it should be, but
okay,
we've seen it time and again where it has not happened, Antoine.
Sure, but when we talk about accountability and changing the system, at some point there's legislative responsibility too, perhaps to recuse themselves. I'm not a lawyer. I won't try to play one here on TV tonight. But at some point, I know that certain people of the General Assembly who have business before the General Assembly, they have to recuse themselves from participating in that. So perhaps lawyering should not be any different. Something to think about.
Want to move on to another subject, and that is the state education superintendent. She wants the state to decide what books go in school libraries and not local school districts. Dave, what's your take on that?
There's been a big pushback as of late for the types of books that are being allowed into our schools across South Carolina. Lexington School District 2 has had a big pushback because they're going into schools and saying there are age inappropriate books that are being put into our classrooms. You can shake your head all you want to on that one, but the reality is the books are there and they're talking about issues that parents say are problematic for age appropriateness with their kids. Is the leaving that up to a state level responsibility a little bit of an overreach? It could be a little bit of an overreach because it really needs to be a place where parents and local school leaders are involved in the process of what books are going to be in their schools. That is a local responsibility. I think Superintendent Ellen Weaver is trying to do her best to answer an issue that is out there, but the question is more of, are we going to see more parents get involved in this at the local level? Well, there need to be.
Here we go again. A group of people who want to try to whitewash history, ban books instead of bullets, instead of dealing with the real issues that our children face. So let's be honest. The South Carolina General Assembly and every statewide office is dominated by Republicans. I am quite certain that if there was some real issue around the kind of books or the kind of teachings are in the classroom or books in libraries, the Republican-dominated General Assembly, including Superintendent of Education, would have done something about it a long time ago. Let's also be honest, Dave. How we do books in this country, in this world, is different. Most books are online anyway. And so the kind of content that certain people may be afraid of because they want to put certain aspects of telling half of the story, not the full story, the material is available online. Those same parents or efforts should be more focused on the kind of online content kids have access to versus the kind of books that were in library. My sister is a high school principal at Swansea High School. I can guarantee you the kind of books that are perceived to be talked about that's in libraries don't exist in libraries across the state. And when they do exist, I'm quite certain that most of these school boards have representation on them that would have eliminated those books a long time ago. I think this is just a waste of time. I think this is the superintendent of education having an axe to grind once again, and it's just quite frankly a distraction.
There's far too many people who are probably still having dinner right now, JR, to talk about some of the material, but I'll put it to you this way. There were books, sexually explicit books, that were put on bookshelves in South Carolina. Legislators tried to put the photos of those books up on the screens in the South Carolina House of Representatives. The speaker would not allow them to be displayed because they were so sexually explicit. That, Antoine, is the bigger issue that a lot of people are wanting to face right now. Not issues of history in the past, but what sort of sexually explicit material we're putting into the hands of our children. They are in our schools. We see them now.
Dave, have you been on the internet lately that the same kids have access to online? That's number one. Number two, what you may define, others may define as sexually explicit, may be a different definition to others.
We'll let the Speaker of the House decide that one, Antoine, because he wasn't allowed it on the class on the
what
floor.
may be sensitive material to some because they're uncomfortable in an ever-changing global society, that may be one conversation, but another conversation is sexually explicit. And I'm willing to bet you, Dave, I'm willing to put your last paycheck on it. The fact that there is not the kind of material that's being perceived in libraries across the state. I'm willing to put your last paycheck on it.
I will gladly take my last paycheck as a bet on that one, because I can guarantee you right now, this station would not allow it to be aired because it would be against FCC regulations.
So why are not local school boards dealing? Why is the government, why is the Republican-controlled government, Republican superintendent trying to add more government layers to saying the state should be doing something that people elect school board members to deal with? I'm just curious.
To protect our children, Antoine.
So what's
to
the role
protect
of the school board?
Our children.
So what's the role of a local elected school board member by the people whose job is to govern a local school district, including what goes on inside of, quote unquote, the library?
To protect our children, Antoine. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And if they're not doing it, Antoine, if they're not doing it, somebody needs to.
So what about
your take on this issue? We're going to have to wrap up the conversation there because we are out of time, but we appreciate your take on this issue. All right, that is it for tonight. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more.